Hello and welcome to World Konnect, your journey across continents. Last week saw the hacking controversy surrounding the US presidential campaign take US-Russia ties further downhill, with both sides in an eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation. Not just that, the hacking controversy also deepened the rift between Team Trump and Team Obama. A new UN chief was sworn in. The fate of thousands of Syrians remained uncertain, with evacuations from Aleppo being suspended. Philippines president courted controversy yet again, and finally a 6-year-old Afghan boy realized his dream of meeting his icon, Lionel Messi. We will tell you all that and more in this edition of World Konnect. Let's get started with the focus of the show. US-Russia face-off over hacking of US election campaign reaches a crescendo. Barack Obama all but names Putin as behind hacking. Russia challenges US to prove it after Obama threatens retaliatory action against Russia. White House accuses President-elect Donald Trump of encouraging Russian hacking of Hillary Clinton's campaign. Trump questions timing of the charge, asks why complain only after Hillary lost. Syrian government suspends evacuations from eastern Aleppo to rebel-held parts of Idlib, blames rebels for breaking terms of the truce. Suspension puts a question mark on the fate of thousands waiting to be evacuated. Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte wades into a fresh controversy with his boast that he personally killed drug suspects during his stint as mayor of Davao City. Controversial remark triggers calls for his impeachment. Lionel Messi makes a young Murtaza's dream come true in Qatar, meets the 6-year-old Afghan boy ahead of Barcelona's match with AL-ASSAD and walks out with him to the pitch before the start of the match. The hacking controversy around the US presidential campaign dominated US politics and foreign policy this week. The gloves were off as Russia threw down the gauntlet to the US, challenging it to prove that it was behind the hack, after Barack Obama warned retaliatory action against Russia for meddling in its elections. This was capped by President Obama all but naming Russian President Vladimir Putin as the one behind the hacking. While the war of words has escalated tensions between US and Russia, the hacking controversy has also deepened the rift between the White House and Team Trump. White House accused Donald Trump of encouraging the hack, which prompted Trump to ask, why complain now, only after Hillary lost? Why not earlier?
The White House has generated more heat in the controversy over Russian hacking into the Democratic presidential campaign by claiming that President-elect Donald Trump knew that Russia was involved and was encouraging Russia's meddling in polls, since he knew that the hacking was having a negative impact on his opponent's campaign. White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest ruffled feathers in the incoming Trump administration, saying, "It is just a fact. You all have it on tape that the Republican nominee for president was encouraging Russia to hack his opponent because he believed that would help his campaign." Questioning the timing of the charge, Donald Trump tweeted, "If Russia or some other entity was hacking, why did the White House wait so long to act? Why did they only complain after Hillary lost?" U.S. intelligence community further stirred the pot. The U.S. television network NBC News quoted U.S. intelligence officials as saying that Russian President Vladimir Putin was personally involved in hacking during the campaign and instructed how material hacked from U.S. Democrats was leaked and otherwise used. They accused Putin of being driven by vendetta against Hillary Clinton. Kremlin denied the charge, with its spokesperson dismissing it as laughable nonsense. But the Obama administration has vowed retaliation against Russia for the cyber attacks during the presidential election at a time and place of its choosing. Barack Obama said in a television interview, "I think there is no doubt that when any foreign government tries to impact the integrity of our elections, we need to take action, and we will." Obama has ordered U.S. intelligence agencies to conduct a full review of the hacking and report back to him before he leaves office on Inauguration Day, January 20. When Russia is in the crosshairs of the Obama administration, China is feeling the heat ahead of Trump formally assuming presidency. Trump has questioned if U.S. should stick to its one China policy in the event of China not making concessions on trade and other issues like North Korea. This came close on the heels of a phone call that Trump took from the president of Taiwan, Tsai Ing-wen. which raised eyebrows in China, as it was the first such contact with Taiwan by a US president-elect or president since 1979. The sequence of events prompted a strong public warning from China, whose foreign ministry said that if the US deviates from its one China policy, bilateral ties would be damaged.
We hope that new government in US will understand the sensitive nature of the Taiwan issue so that it does not affect Sino-US ties.
The controversies on the strategic front aside, with just a month left for Donald Trump to take over the reins of the US, more people were roped into the Trump team. Trump announced Rex Tillerson as his nominee for Secretary of State. Tillerson is the chief executive of ExxonMobil, which has close ties with the Russian government. In 2013, Russian President Vladimir Putin awarded Tillerson with Russia's Order of Friendship, one of the country's highest civilian honors. Lawmakers from both major parties have raised questions about Tillerson's relationship with Russia, and his confirmation in the Senate is not expected to be easy. David Friedman was chosen as Trump's nominee for the U.S. ambassador to Israel. Friedman has been one of the president-elect's top advisors on U.S.-Israel relationship during his campaign. In a remark that has the potential to spark rancor among Islamic countries and reverse decades of U.S. foreign policy, Friedman said that he looked forward to taking up his post in Jerusalem instead of Tel Aviv. Former Navy SEAL Commander Ryan Zinke is Trump's pick for his Interior Secretary. The first-term Republican from Montana is a proponent of keeping public lands under federal ownership, putting him at odds with some of the Republican Party. Trump chose former Texas Governor Rick Perry as his nominee for Energy Secretary. Since Perry is from a leading oil-producing state, his selection is further indication that the Trump administration may be friendly towards fossil fuel industry. Stephen Miller was chosen as Trump's senior advisor to the president for policy. Miller has been the president-elect's top advisor on policy since January 2016. Trump officially nominated Gary Cohn, the president of Goldman Sachs, as director of the National Economic Council. His selection to manage the country's economy comes despite Trump's repeated campaign criticism of Goldman Sachs, which he said was part of the financial system that had hurt the working class. Donald Trump has hurtled from one controversy to another on the campaign trail, but even as president-elect, his tryst with controversy is far from over.
Meanwhile, speaking at his last news conference of 2016 before leaving for annual Christmas holiday, President Obama said he warned Russian President Vladimir Putin about meddling in American political campaigns. Obama said that he asked about the Russian leader to cut it out and warned of serious consequences if he didn't. There was chaos across Venezuela as its citizens flocked banks to deposit 100 Bolivar bills after President Nicolas Maduro's surprise move to pull them from circulation. People can turn in the 100 Bolivar bills at the central bank until the 20th of December. Long queues were seen across cities as people complained that ATMs were still handing them the banned bills. Maduro said new higher denomination bills would be fully distributed in January. Venezuela's borders with Brazil and Colombia were closed to stop mafias hoarding the currency abroad. The border closure deadline has been extended by another 72 hours, that is till Sunday. Release of new higher denomination bills started on Thursday. Accused by critics of taking a nonsensical and rushed measure, Maduro justified it as an attempt to outwit international mafias, especially on the Colombian border, hoarding bolivars for smuggling goods. The United Nations has a new chief. Former Portuguese Prime Minister Antonio Guterres has been sworn in as the Secretary General of the UN. He will assume charge on the 1st of January, and his hands will be full considering the festering conflicts the world over. The selection process for the top job at UN was different this time. The selection had traditionally been decided behind closed doors by a few powerful countries, but this year the process involved public discussions with each candidate campaigning for the job. What's more, he was chosen amid growing calls to elect a woman Secretary General. While that may not have happened, Guterres sent out a message on gender parity by appointing women to 3 top UN positions.
Ongoing conflicts across the globe, the unresolved refugee crisis, climate change, widening income inequality, human rights situation and loss of confidence in global bodies, including the one he will take over in January, are the major challenges Antonio Guterres is faced with. As the former Portuguese Prime Minister gears up to take the reins of the world institution from his predecessor Ban Ki-moon, he pledged to personally help broker peace in various conflicts and reform the 71-year-old United Nations to become more effective. After taking oath of office, Guterres said one of his top priorities would be to reconstruct the trust between the governments and their people. The UN chief designate's remarks are seen by many with reference to the surge of populism in US and other countries.
Fear is driving the decisions of many people around the world. And we must understand their anxieties and meet their needs without losing sight of our universal values. It is time to reconstruct relations between people and leaders, national and international. Time for leaders to listen and show that they care about their own people and about the global stability and solidarity on which we all depend. And it's time for the United Nations to do the same.
Many feel that dealing with the Trump administration will also be an uphill task for the new Secretary General. He will begin his new job on January 1st, 2017, just weeks before Trump moves into the White House. During the presidential campaign, US President-elect Donald Trump had questioned the massive funding by Washington to UN. Guterres will need to ensure that the single largest contributor continues the commitment. Now, does this mean that the UN be subjected to arm twisting? The outgoing UN chief Ban Ki-moon is leaving office with an unresolved Syria conflict. Guterres would want to see the crisis to end as soon as possible and the humanitarian aid reach all of those who need it the most. Growing displacement in Iraq, Afghanistan, the Central African Republic and Sudan is also calling for an urgent attention. The list is long. The times the former UN High Commissioner for Refugees is assuming office are extremely volatile, and what awaits him is a massive pile of challenges which his predecessor had hard time tackling.
The conflict in Syria and West Asia continued to evoke global concern. The evacuation of thousands of refugees out of the besieged city of Aleppo to rebel-held parts of Idlib has been halted. The Syrian government blamed the suspension on some of the evacuees transporting weapons and advanced communication devices in violation of the terms of the truce between the warring sides.
Hundreds of distressed and exhausted civilians began leaving war-torn Syrian city of Aleppo on Thursday as they were evacuated in buses and ambulances. But the long-awaited exercise did not last long. Just a day after the process began and only a few thousands of civilians, including children and women, could be rescued, it was halted. Government and the opposition exchanged charges for the halt, but the ones at receiving end were thousands of those in need of immediate help. President Bashar al-Assad's forces, backed by Russian Air Force and assisted by Iranian-backed militia, have been bombarding Aleppo for months in order to push the opposition forces away. Repeated calls by United Nations rights bodies and activists for a halt in fighting remained unheard, even as several temporary ceasefire agreements could not stand for long. Thousands of civilians were at the receiving end as they were deprived of humanitarian aid and medical treatment. The evacuation was expected to end the prolonged deprivation and suffering for some of the desperate residents of East Aleppo. Thousands of cold and hungry civilians remain stranded in the rebel-held East, waiting to be picked up. The evacuation plan was the culmination of 2 weeks of rapid advances by the Syrian army and its allies that confined the insurgents again to smaller pockets of the city as a result of intense airstrikes and artillery fire. Government forces took nearly all the remaining rebel-held parts of Aleppo this week. The evacuation and rescue operation was the result of a deal brokered by Turkey and Russia and overseen by the Red Cross. The development marked the beginning of the closing chapter of the rebellion in Aleppo. Half of the city was seized by the opposition in 2012, and since then it has been divided. By taking control of Aleppo, the last major urban area in Syria, where the rebels maintained an active presence, Bashar al-Assad's regime has proved the power of its military coalition.
I want to assure that what is happening today is writing history, written by every Syrian citizen. Its writing did not start today. It has started since 6 years ago when the crisis and war started against Syria.
Meanwhile, the UN envoy for Syria has said that about 50,000 people need to be evacuated from East Aleppo and some are likely to be evacuated to the rebel stronghold of Idlib. He also warned Idlib to become the next Aleppo if no political solution can be found to the civil war.
What will happen in Idlib? Well, I am sorry to say that we don't know, but seeing what happened in Aleppo, and if there isn't any agreement on a ceasefire, and if there is no political discussion, then Idlib is next Aleppo.
Aleppo, the once flourishing economic center with its renowned ancient sites, has been pulverized during the Syrian war, which has killed more than 300,000 people, created the world's worst refugee crisis and also allowed for the rise of Islamic State. Analysts say following victory in Aleppo, President Assad is most likely to shift focus to other rebel-held areas including Idlib.
Controversy-ridden Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte dropped a fresh bombshell this week when he boasted about personally killing drug suspects during his stint as mayor of Davao City. He has often been in the eye of the storm over the controversial killings of drug peddlers under his watch. The fresh controversy triggered calls for his impeachment, but the support he enjoys in the Congress means he can easily stay on as president.
Facing widespread criticism over his anti-narcotics campaign, Filipino President Rodrigo Duterte has added fresh fuel to the fire with his controversial statement. Duterte said he personally killed some of the criminals during his tenure of the mayor of Davao City. Addressing business leaders at Manila early this week, Duterte even boasted that he used to cruise the streets on a motorcycle looking to kill criminals.
But in Davao, I used to do it personally, just to show to the guys that if I can do it, why can't you? And I go around Davao with a motorcycle, with a big bike, and I would just patrol the streets and looking for trouble also.
Duterte's remarks sparked further controversy with two Philippine senators terming it as enough ground to impeach the president. Senators Leila de Lima and Richard Gordon said his comments make a strong case for his ousting. A staunch critic of Duterte, Senator Leila de Lima, accused him of betraying the public trust, saying mass murders fall into the category of high crimes, hence making a case for impeachment. Senator Gordon, who heads the Senate Justice Committee, said that he was not surprised by the president's comments. Duterte's Justice Minister, Vitaliana Aguirre, sought to clarify on the statement, saying it was just a hyperbole and should not be taken literally. Any attempt to impeach Duterte is unlikely to succeed. He not only enjoys huge domestic support for his bloody war on drugs, but also has allies in the lower and upper houses of Congress. Before becoming president, Duterte served as mayor of Davao for 2 decades, in which human rights groups have accused him of being behind extrajudicial killings in the city. Since taking office on the 30th of June this year, more than 5,000 people have been killed in his drug war. Police say over 2,000 have been killed by officers in self-defense, while another more than 3,000 killings are under investigation. Human rights groups have termed these as extrajudicial killings. The campaign was also criticized by the US and United Nations, to which Duterte responded with abuses and warnings.
Pakistanis remembered the victims of Peshawar school attack 2 years ago that killed more than 140 people, including 134 students. Talibani terrorists wearing suicide vests stormed the Army Public School on 16th December 2014. At least 500 students aged between 10 and 20 years were inside the building when the attack started. Civilians, students, leaders and security officials attended a ceremony on Friday to remember the victims. Ceremonies were held across schools to honor the victims of the attack. Newspapers took out special editions to mark the anniversary. Italian Prime Minister Paolo Gentiloni has won the confidence vote in the upper house Senate, allowing his coalition government to take office. Gentiloni won the vote on Wednesday after he was appointed premier following Matteo Renzi's resignation last week. Renzi had put in his papers after losing a referendum on his proposed reform of the constitution. Gentiloni reappointed virtually all of Renzi's old ministers and easily won an initial confidence vote in the lower house of parliament. His administration might only last a few months, with many party leaders pushing for elections in the first half of 2017, a year ahead of schedule. Addressing a Senate ahead of the vote, Gentiloni said he would seek cross-party consensus to carry out reforms initiated in previous years. And here's a look at some more developments that are making headlines elsewhere. Now it's time to know what's keeping showbiz buzzing. Musical romance La La Land led the Golden Globe nominations on Monday with 7 nods, including the top category of Best Comedy or Musical Film, while independent production Moonlight led the drama film categories with 6 nominations. La La Land scored nominations for Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling in the lead comedy or musical acting categories, while writer-director Damien Chazelle received nods for Best Director and Best Screenplay. Moonlight, the coming-of-age tale of an impoverished black boy struggling with his sexuality, scored nominations for Barry Jenkins in the directing and screenplay categories, while actors Naomi Harris and Mahershala Ali were nominated in the Best Supporting Acting races. More than 90 journalists in the Hollywood Foreign Press Association choose the Golden Globes. Winners will be announced on the 8th of January at a televised ceremony hosted by Jimmy Fallon.
What did you expect?
It's festive season across the globe. With Christmas preparations in full swing, a German couple in the small town of Rinteln has pulled out all the stops for their Christmas decorations. From the outside, Thomas and Suzanne Jeromen's house does not look out of the ordinary, with only a few modest decorations, but inside it is filled to the rafters with Christmas trees, over 100 in all, crammed into the 105 square meters of space. They are adorned with twinkling fairy lights, ornaments and around 16,000 baubles. The collection started small but has grown rapidly over the last few years, and it's made the couple into local celebrities. It takes the couple 8 weeks to get the house ready for the Christmas period. They begin putting up decorations in early October, filling every room except for their bedroom. But other than the bedroom, the Christmas paraphernalia is everywhere you look, right down to a Santa Claus toilet seat in the bathroom. After all, Christmas is around the corner. And in Finland, Santa Claus is preparing for it in a big way. At Santa Claus's Lapland home in Finland, his helpers sought out piles of letters from around the world, each detailing children's requests for this Christmas. In English, Italian or other languages, youngsters' handwriting adorn the envelopes addressed to Father Christmas, some decorated with colorful hearts and stars. As the holiday nears, every day is busy for Santa's team in Rovaniemi, which calls itself his official hometown near the Arctic Circle. Thousands of visitors come to see the Rovaniemi Santa attraction each year ahead of Christmas, meeting the man himself, his reindeer, and enjoying the magical scenery.
Hello, my dear friends. Another year is coming to its end, and it's been a turbulent year with many big problems, but also many very good things. We have celebrated the 25th anniversary of the Children's Rights Agreement. It's a fantastic thing. Now, as the Christmas is coming close, reach out for those who need a helping hand. Do it with compassion. That's the real Christmas spirit. I wish you a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
It was a dream come true for 6-year-old Afghan boy Murtaza Ahmadi, who not only got to meet his icon Lionel Messi in Qatar ahead of Barcelona's match with AL-ASSAD, but also walked out with him to the pitch before the start of the match. And what followed after that was a heartwarming sight. Murtaza would not leave the player's side while on the pitch at the start of the game. This one will tug at your heartstrings.
6-year-old Afghan boy Murtaza Ahmadi has his dream fulfilled, meeting his icon Lionel Messi. Murtaza, who became an internet sensation earlier this year by wearing a plastic bag which mimicked Messi's shirt, got to meet Messi in Qatar ahead of Barcelona's match with AL-ASSAD. After Murtaza's photographs went viral and the boy was identified and tracked down to Afghanistan's Eastern Ghazni province, he expressed his wish to meet Messi. And efforts began to bring Murtaza and the Barcelona star together, and finally this week the boy was granted his wish. In Qatar, ahead of the Spanish club's clash against AL-ASSAD, the Barcelona forward walked out into the pitch with Ahmadi. Ahmadi was given the honour of bringing the match ball out into the pitch. Even after placing the ball on the centre circle, Ahmadi was unwilling to leave the pitch and even ignored the referee's attempts to escort him. The little boy ran towards Messi and held his hand on the edge of the semicircle. Other players burst into laughter as they saw Murtaza wanting to stay there more. Finally, the referee carried the kid off the pitch. It all started when Murtaza asked his father for a shirt like his hero Messi, but it was outside the means of his family. His family decided to dress him in a blue and a white plastic bag to mimic the Argentina colours. In February, Murtaza received an Argentina and Barcelona shirt in a package along with a ball from UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador Messi. Murtaza and his family had their own share of pain and hardship before the little fan's dream realized. After receiving constant telephone threats, the family was eventually forced to flee to Pakistan, but as they say, all's well that ends well. At such a young age, the boy has experienced how does a big dream coming true feels like. He now has another dream to achieve, and that is to be a footballer like Messi, because he knows dreaming big is the first step of achieving big.
That's a sight to remember. And this brings us to the end of this edition of World Konnect. Do send us your feedback on the show. You can write to us on our email ID, which is worldkonnect.ddnews@gmail.com. You can also log on to our Facebook page and tweet to us at WorldKonnectDD. Before we leave, take a look at how the youth choir of the University of Lisbon is welcoming tourists at Lisbon Airport. On that festive note, I and the entire team of World Konnect will take your leave. Thanks for watching.
So amazing.